Well, joining us now to discuss all options on the table for the United States when it comes to the Islamic regime in Iran is Jonathan Schanzer from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Jonathan, thank you for joining us today. Always a pleasure to have you on. What do you make of Pezeshkian's response to Trump so far? Does the regime realize that they may just be digging their own grave?
Well, I think so. And I think the regime fully understands the weak position that it's in right now. The Israeli military has taken out the vast majority, if not all of those strategic air defenses. That's left the skies vulnerable to an Israeli attack or to an American attack. On top of that, the ballistic missile production capabilities are down to virtually nil. So they are using, or they only have a few, maybe a few thousand at most ballistic missiles at their disposal. Not even clear whether it's that many. So right now they are looking a lot weaker. You've got an administration that is already imposing significant sanctions, maximum pressure. The Israelis are in conversations right now with the White House about what can be done, what should be done, whether Israel goes alone, whether it gets help from the United States. The only thing standing in the way right now is the prospect of negotiations. And here you'd think that the Iranian regime would be doing almost frantic outreach to make sure that it locks in those negotiations and that it postpones some of the things that Israel has been weighing. And instead, what you see is the regime insulting the United States, the supreme leader in particular, taking to social media and taking shots at the United States. This is not going to play well. You do get a sense that they are, in fact, digging their own grave.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the Iranian public. The economy, of course, is in free fall. There isn't water. There isn't electricity, at least sufficient. The country is really suffering as a result of this maximum pressure campaign. Does the regime really think that they can outmaneuver Trump on this issue? I mean, where does this end?
Well, look, the regime understands that as it has engaged in the past with previous administrations, that they've fleeced the U.S. government. And I think they're hoping that they can do that again with this administration. But I do think that you're right, that they're feeling the squeeze economically for sure. And I think it's only ramping up. And I do think that the people of Iran understand that there is a moment here, and how long that moment lasts, nobody knows. But this is the window. We are all in it. And I think the Israelis understand it. Iran's enemies around the region, notably countries like Saudi Arabia or maybe Azerbaijan, others, they see the weakness. The people on the ground see the weakness of the regime. And again, it's economic, it's political, it's military. We've not really seen this regime as weak as we see right now. Maybe in the regime's entire history, you could maybe say that during the 1980s, during the Iran-Iraq War, that maybe it was close to this level of weakness. But truly, this is remarkable. Israel has, I think, flipped the script as it relates to the regime. And it does beg the question, how much longer is anyone going to wait here with the window open the way that it is?
Now, in regards to the nuclear program specifically, we already see large stockpiles of 60% enriched uranium. What are the options on the table to stop this regime from getting a weapon?
Look, the Israelis know the sites. I think they're pretty, at this point, well known to, the U.S., the Israelis, the West writ large. There are targets that are going to be harder to destroy, targets that are going to be easier to destroy. The big question is doing this before Iran is able to make a sprint for a weapon. That is the key, so that you can maintain the sort of environmental concerns. You can keep those contained. These are the sorts of things that I'm sure that Israelis and Americans are talking about right now. But again, we are within the window. They are weak, and they've not made that decision to make a dash for a bomb. The question is really, got to keep asking this. How much longer do we want to keep this window open without taking advantage of it? I'm sure that this is the point that's being made by the Netanyahu government to the Trump administration. And I think really a lot of this has to do with what kind of stomach Donald Trump might have for conflict, or whether he wants to try to steer this in the direction of negotiations. And again, I think we're seeing signs that both seem to be, appealing to the president on some level, but it doesn't look like he's made a definitive decision yet.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but thank you for joining us today, Jonathan Schanzer. Always a pleasure to have you on.